some summer weather. And got my sage going, sitting out here at my meditation mat, and just out here meditating, enjoying nature. And I started thinking about like how complex we make it. You know, we worry so much about mundane things, money, material wealth, and all of that. We stress ourselves out over bills and, you know, everyday life things, our drive and stuff like that. We're stressed out over the things we don't have and we want. And we're stressed out over the things that we don't have. The thing I just said that we do have, but we're not content with. And just being out here in nature, I realize how complicated we make life, and just living a life of simplicity. You know, I can just go out here in nature and here, just being out here, feeling the warmth of the sun on my body, feeling the breeze of the air blowing, hearing how the wind, the sound of the leaves rustling when the wind blows on it, the sound of the birds singing, watching the bees pollinating, just observing nature. It's a beautiful thing. We take advantage of things like this. But just observing God's creation and seeing the beauty of it is very healing. And it just lets you know that, you know, life doesn't have to be complex. We need to appreciate simplicity. It's when we want, the more we want, the more unhappy we are. You know, I really, for myself, I think that, you know, I think that I would live a simple life. I already do, but I think that that's something that I just want to do in general for the rest of my life. Just live in simplicity. I don't need a big fancy house. I don't need, you know, designer clothes and all that stuff. I don't need any of the things that people stress out over and desire and, you know, still kill for. And if people could just learn to appreciate the simple things in life and just be okay with just having, you know, food, clothing, and shelter. It doesn't have to be extravagant. Be thankful for those three things. When you have those three things, you have everything that you need. Just living a simple life and stop desiring to have because you're looking for something that is never going to fulfill you. and just be chilling. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need all that stuff. I really don't. And being out in nature just helps me to see things from a different perspective, from a higher perspective. We don't need these things. The more a civilization has, the more unhappy they are. You know, if you have less than one, it's easier to be content. But with all of the things that we have, it just makes us want more, and it makes us more discontent with what we have. So if we could just take a moment to unplug from the matrix, you know, go out in nature, go to the beach, or, you know, just be somewhere tranquil and peaceful, and just sit out there. It really helps you to see things from a different perspective. You know, it kind of reminds me of the Bible verse. I can't remember what it is, but I think Jesus was talking about how nature, like different animals, you know, they don't stress out over whether they're going to eat or how they're clothed or where they're going to live, you know, because God provides that. And God makes sure that they have what they need, that they have food, that they, you know, they have protection. You know, people say don't wear clothing, but they have fur, feathers, whatever. You know, they have an outer layer of protection for them. And they don't worry. We're the only species that worries and stresses out and is discontent. Like, animals don't get bored with life. You know what I mean? They don't, birds aren't like, you know, I'm tired of this damn bird's nest. I want a luxury bird's nest. You know what I'm saying? I want a bird's nest made out of acacia wood or something. You know, like, I'm gonna get some gold, try to find some gold on the ground, or maybe some jewelry or something that people drop, and I'm gonna make my nest fancy. And we don't care about stuff like that. You know what I mean? They're not worrying about the dumb shit that we worry about. You know what I'm saying? We're the ones that worry about stuff like that. If we could learn from the animals, learn from nature, and just exist, and just be grateful and thankful for what we have, and live in simplicity, we would be a more happier species, because we're not desiring, like, we're not being led by desire. As long as you're led by desire and attachment, then you're never going to be happy. You're always going to be discontent, and you're never going to be able to find peace. It's when you let go of these things that you can find peace. When you don't care anymore about whether you're rich or if you have like all these material things. You know, when you can just be thankful and live in peace and, you know, appreciate those three necessities that, you know, we have, which is food, clothing, and shelter, then you can live a more peaceful life. You know, it's desire and attachment that causes us to be unhappy. And that's something that is a part of Buddhist teachings. There's some spiders crawling on my yoga mat. I'm like, no, you got to go back in grass. But it's like attachment and desires. That's something that is a part of Buddhist teaching and Hinduism too. Like ancient, not just them, you know, ancient Kemetic teachings, like all the ancient spiritual belief systems, taught that these things, attachment and desire are the killers of joy and peace. You can't grow spiritually as long as you're attached to the things of this world, people, things. You have to learn how to detach. You have to learn how to desire less, desire less of the things of this world and desire more of God, the divine, whatever name that you use for the God of things. Make God your greatest desire, and when you do that, you will have peace, you will have joy, you will have all the things that you are looking for through the attainment of the things in this world that you're trying to gain. And I'm not saying, not to have these things. Just don't let them have you. Me personally, living a simple life is gratifying to me. I know if I was an adult in the 70s, I would be a hippie. I would be a hippie. I sure would. I would be a hippie. I'd be all about that peace and love and stuff, without the drugs stuff. But, yeah, it's like, just being out here in nature reminds me of how simple life is and how we as humans make it more complex. You can learn a lot from observing nature. Just sitting out in nature and observing the animals, observing, how they do. And the animals, they just chilling, they just living, they just being, they just existing, they not worrying about nothing. Like I'm looking at this bird and he just hopping around on the grass, eating bugs and worms or whatever. He chilling. He not worrying about where his next meal is coming from. You know what I'm saying? He's not worrying about, where he's gonna live or how he's gonna take care of his family. He's not worried about that. Because he knows that God is gonna take care of him. God is gonna make sure that he got everything that he needs. We're the ones that get stressed out. And it's mainly because, especially if you live in a first world country, like America, most people, we have opportunities. You know what I'm saying? We have opportunities that, people in third world countries don't have. And we are the most unhappy people on the planet. We complain about everything, but we got everything. It's just that we're not content with what we have. And if you could just stop complaining and look at what you have and be appreciative of it, then you would be more content and more happy in your life. Because you got a roof over your head, you got transportation, you got food, clothing, shelter, you got all the things that you need. You just aren't content with it because you're comparing yourself to other people. You want what other people have. If we could just all just stop that dumb shit, like for real, and just be content and thank God every day for what we have. Appreciate, be like the animals. They ain't worrying about shit. They got everything that they need at their disposal. And so do we. We have food, clothing, and shelter. And that's something to be thankful for. It's when we start desiring more. I know I got a house, but I'm not happy with my house. I want a bigger house, or I want a better looking house. Or I got clothes, but they ain't designer, so I want designer clothes. And all of this stuff is really ego-based. It really is. It's ego-based. We feel like if we have certain things that, first off, people who care about what people think, that they want these things just for bragging rights, which is dumb. You have people who have low self-esteem. You feel like if they have these things, it's going to make them feel better. No, it might for a little bit, but then you're going to be empty again, and then you're going to want something else. Living a life of simplicity and being thankful for what you have will free you. It will free you from being miserable. If you could just sit there and look at everything that you have and be appreciative of it instead of complaining because it's not what you want. Stop wanting. Stop wanting. Stop being attached to shit, and you will free yourself. I promise you. That's what all the ancient religions and belief systems, spiritual belief systems taught. Because they know what happens when you become attached to things and people, and you become attached to the things of this world. That's why we got crime. That's why people doing this negative magic. Because and that's why people are jealous of other people. That's why people are stealing, killing. The love of money is the root to all evil. Why? Because people desire it. If people would stop desiring these things and just be content with what they have, then we wouldn't have crime. We wouldn't have people killing each other. We wouldn't have people trying to harm each other to possess things that, is temporal anyway. Everything that we want is temporal. The only thing that's constant in this reality is change. Nothing lasts forever, not even our bodies. So we even have to learn how to become detached to life. Because at some point, this physical vessel that we live in is going to cease to work. It's not going to work anymore, and it's going to I don't want to say die, it's going to go back into the ground from which it came. And the spiritual aspect of ourselves is going to move on. And that's just the reality of life. Things die and things are born. And if we can become content with change, because nothing in this world stays the same. We can be content with change, be content with what we have, and be thankful and thank God every day for what we have, because at any moment it can be taken away. So we take for granted the stuff we don't care about. We don't appreciate what we have until it's gone. So start appreciating what you have. Start being thankful for what you have, and stop complaining about it. Because one day it could be taken away, and then it'll be too late. You don't want to get to the point where you lose everything, and then all of a sudden now you're thankful. Be thankful now, and try to learn how to detach yourself from desire, from being attached to people, places, things. It doesn't mean, like when I say detach from people, it doesn't mean that you don't love the people that are in your life. But you don't want that love to become an obsession or to control you to the point where you're unable to follow the will of God, or to where you are, where it compromises your righteousness, your ability to do what you know is right. When I say righteousness, I'm not talking about perfection. People think that righteous means being perfect. We're not perfect. We are imperfect beings. We have, two sides of us. Those of us who are divine beings, we have the aspect of ourselves that is divine, and we have the human aspect of ourselves. And the human aspect of ourselves can get us into trouble sometimes. But it's not about perfection. It's a lifestyle. You just try to do your best every day to live, according to the will of the divine. And that's it. You don't have your good days, you don't have your bad days. But if you could just, try to become less detached to the things in this world and the people in your life. It doesn't mean that you don't love these people, but we lose everything in life. Nothing in this life is permanent. And being able to accept that, and to understand that we're all playing a role in this game of life, or this movie of life. And the people that are in your life, they're playing roles as well. We're all divine beings having a human experience, and sometimes the role that people play in life has an inspiration to you. And you gotta be able to look at that. And as long as you become attached to people, you are struggling with that. So just practice, little by start with small things, and then try to work your way up to the more difficult things. Because I'm telling you, and this is something that I'm saying to myself as well. Everything that I talk about on my channel is something that I am working on. Well, not everything, but some things are things that I've worked on, some things are things that I'm working on. But I'm not a master. I'm mastering, and this is part of my spiritual growth as well. And it's going to free you, learning how to detach from desires and from the things in this world and people. Not allowing anyone to control you but God. That is a difficult thing. But I feel like it's a necessary word to evolve, on the spiritual journey. You have to learn how to detach and be thankful. Just live in simplicity and be thankful for what you have. There's a Bible verse that says, and I'm just paraphrasing because I'm not more verbatim. It's easier for a wealthy man to go through. No, I'm sorry. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a wealthy man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And that says a lot, because it's impossible for a camel to go through an eye of a needle. That's never gonna happen. So that's the same that, being, not to say that wealthy people can't enter the kingdom of heaven, but it's going to be very, 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 very difficult because of that attachment to money, that attachment to wealth, that attachment to status, which is something that, is going to keep that person out. And when I say the kingdom of heaven, I'm not thinking of an actual place. I don't really believe heaven is an actual place. I believe it's a state of mind. But anyway, it doesn't matter. If you believe in an actual place called heaven, then fine. Who cares? If that works for you, it doesn't matter. What matters is our spiritual journey, our evolution, and learning how to detach from your desires and from the things of this world, people and things of this world. It's going to free you. It's going to free you. It's going to free you. Because once you don't care, like it doesn't matter, then when you lose stuff, it's not going to stress you out. When people leave your life, it's not going to stress you out. Because you understand that, these things are temporal anyway. Nothing's permanent in this world. And as long as you're making God your priority, you know that the divine is going to take care of you. The divine, whatever you lose, the divine is going to make sure that it compensates with that. It don't have to be the same, but the divine is going to make sure that you have all the necessities, food, clothing, and shelter. And that's the only things that you really need in this life to survive, to live. Yeah, so anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about today. I love being out here. Nature is good medicine. Stop being in your house and go out into this beautiful world that God created.